بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يقربنا عليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Welcome to everybody that's joined us today. Today, the back to basics. And it's important that we remind ourselves of things which are repetitive, because generally what happens is when something is repetitive, what tends to happen is people pick up mistakes without realizing, because they're doing it so much. So whether it's our prayer, whether it's our wudu, whether it's ghusl, whether other things we do repetitively. So it's important that we remind ourselves every so often of the basics. Sometimes we leap high and we tend to forget the basics, and sometimes the basics are the foundation. And because those basics are not fulfilled, sometimes the things that we build on that foundation, is weak as well. So inshallah, we're going to try today, inshallah, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, we're going to try today to go through, I've been given the wudu and the ghusl. And obviously the ghusl chapter is quite difficult to teach because he mentions a lot of things that, especially if there's families watching. But again, in terms of our deen, we should never be shy, because otherwise we will always remain in that state, as we mentioned before, that we will never know. So this is why it's important that sometimes certain things are mentioned that we know. So purification, tahara. Today, inshallah, we're going to, my chapter that I've been given is tahara, purification. And this is, realistically speaking, this is really is a foundation of our deen. Because if this foundation is not right, if the purification is not right, then obviously it leads to our prayers not right, our recitation of the Quran is not right, and everything that we build upon that, right, is not right, because obviously the foundation was weak, because the foundation was not right. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he loves those who turn to him in repentance, and loves those who purify themselves. And this is a sign of a believer. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized greatly on purification, because our deen is about purity. It's our deen right from from everything, whether it's from wudu, whether it's from having a bath, whether it's keeping our clothes, everything is about purification. And this is why the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at-tuhuru shatrul iman, that cleanliness or purification is a half of our iman. Obviously the scholars have differed the understanding of this hadith. But generally, if you see that our faith is built on purification, built on cleanliness, and this is what we are all about. It's not about apparently be looking good and pure, but it's all about everything else that's attached to it. So we are pure in every state, because that's part of our deen and that's our Islam. So inshallah, we're going to try to cover these two subjects. Inshallah, we'll see how it goes. Inshallah, how much we can cover and how much we can get done. And tahara literally obviously means cleanliness, means purification, but in terms of the Sharia, it means lifting of the ritual impurity, which is hadath. You have the hadath akbar and hadath al-asghar, the higher form of impurity and the lower form of impurity. And obviously then you've got the minor impurity, which is achieved by wudu, ablution. And wudu, there's many beautiful hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I remember I was telling this, reading some of these hadith to some of the students in one of the courses, and I just mentioned one or two hadith that just by making wudu, there's so much virtue. Just by staying in wudu, there's so much virtue, and there's so much reward to gain. So just not doing anything else, just staying in a state of wudu, right? This is la yasbugh abdun al-wudu'a. It says it doesn't no slave does their wudu properly. And this is what that completely, washes the limbs properly, not cuts corners and not takes shortcuts. Does the wudu properly, washes the limbs thoroughly. He said, إِلَّا غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. And it comes in a hadith that except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives their previous sins and the future sins. And this is the virtue of wudu. And there's many, many hadith that talk about the virtue of wudu. And that's why another hadith mentions in al-abda is tawadda'a for the madmada, that a person when he makes wudu and he rinses his mouth, adhab Allah bi kulli dhanbin asaba bifihi. So he says all the sins that they've committed with their mouth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he washes those sins away. And he says when he rinses his mouth, anything attached with that, rinses his nose, anything attached with that, that's all wiped away. فإذا غسل وجهه, when he washes his face, أذهب الله بكل ذنب أصابه بوجهه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away all of the sins related to his face, so his eyes and everything else. And فإذا غسل يديه, when he washes his hands, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away all of the sins which are linked to the person's hand. And he says when he washes his head, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away all the sins which are related to the head. And is when he washes his feet, he says, everything attached to his feet. Now look at the beauty of subhanallah of wudu. If we can just get used to making wudu more, subhanallah, look at the virtue of that. Yes, I think the hardest thing, a lot of people, when you ask them why you don't pray, I think the hardest thing they would say that is the actual wudu. The wudu is the hardest bit, right? That's the hardest part. But the virtue of wudu is such, right? There's so much reward for it. That I mentioned last hadith, then we'll go straight into the fiqh. Sayyidina Anas bin Malik, the Messenger of Allah said to Sayyidina Anas bin Malik, Ya Anas, in istata'ta an takuna abadan ala wudu'in. He says, oh Anas, if you are able to stay in wudu, and this was remaining wudu. So in other words, now look at this, that just by remaining in wudu, without doing anything else, if we can stay in the state of wudu, our good deeds are just going tick, 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 just ticking along, to, just with nothing else, just by staying in wudu. Our limbs are doing tasbih. They're glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those limbs which we are washed. Now look at the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by just being in the state of wudu. Right? And the angels like to be in that person's company. Right? And they say that, so hadith goes on, he says, فَفَلْ فَإِنَّ مَلَكَ الْمَوْتِ, he said, when the angel of death is kabada ruha abdin, he says, when he takes the soul of a slave, وَهُوَ عَلَى وُضُوءٍ كُتِبَتْ لَهُ شَهَادَةٍ, he says that is what is written for him, shahada, martyrdom. That person dies in a state of wudu. Now look at the beauty of wudu. There's so many more hadith on this chapter of wudu itself that are so inspiring that you would think, subhanallah, I would rather stay in the state of wudu, right? And if we can stay in that state, then alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. And there's many more hadith that Allah subhanahu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned regarding the virtues of wudu. But anyway, inshallah, we're going to go straight in, inshallah, because obviously time is limited, and obviously we have a certain amount of time to go pray Maghrib as well. So inshallah, we'll break off for Maghrib, maybe about 10 minutes, inshallah. We'll come back after that, inshallah. So impurity itself, okay, any form of impurity or filth is opposite to tahara, is opposite to purification. So in terms of purity, you have the hakiki and the hukmi. Hakiki is the physical impurity that you can see. So for example, here the physical impurity would be like urine, stool, blood, alcohol, excretion of animal. There's so many things that you physically that you can see that this is an impurity that you would wash off. And then obviously you have the hukmi. Hukmi means that in terms of physically, there's no impurity. But in terms of the Sharia, hukman, you're considered impure. So you have to become pure in order for you to engage in certain ibadah, in certain worship. So for example, if somebody breaks their wudu, then that person is considered to be in a state of impurity. And this is called hukmi in terms of the Sharia ruling that this person is impure. So this person cannot pray for namaz, cannot pray the salah until this person has made wudu. So this person now is in a state of, well, hukman is basically he's in a state of impurity. Now the removal impurity, obviously, whether it's the clothing, whether it's the place of worship, okay, and so forth. And so if it's actual impurity, usually they say that they say the size of a dirham. Now, size of a dirham, they say that like the circumference of your palm, right? Probably that size. So they say that so there's three stages when it's fard, when it's wajib, and when it's sunnah. So they say that if it's that size, if it's the If it's more than a dirham, right, then it's considered to be fard to remove it, right? So if it's that much impurity, so here again, I think people also have this misconception about impurity, that people say, oh no, I can't pray because my clothes are impure, right? The classic excuse that people use, right? In reality, okay, if we've got impurity on our clothes, we have to see how much impurity there is. Is it the size of that dirham? Is it that size of kind of the size of the circumference of our palm? And if you gather a little bit together, a bit here, a bit here, a bit here, and it gathers up and is less than that, and we've got nothing to, again, see, the thing is, the deen is yusr. The deen is ease. But what happens is, it's a la yukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put a burden upon a soul that he can't handle. So Allah has gave us ways to make the deen easy for us. And the more that we know, the more easy our deen becomes for us. The less that we know, the more that it becomes difficult upon us, because the shaitan has a greater opportunity to play with our mind and obviously take us away. So, oh no, you can't pray because your clothes are impure. You might just have a little bit of impurity. Now again, if your clothes are impure, how much impurity is there? So if it's the size of a dirham, the size of the palm, the circumference of the palm, they say that if it's that much, then it's fard for you to wash it. Now, if it's more than that, then it's fard for you to wash it. And they say if it's the size of the palm, then the circumference of the palm, then it's wajib. And if it's less than that, then it's sunnah. Now, when we say sunnah, it means that your prayer would be valid, right? You're excused to pray with that impurity on your clothes. So when we say a size of the palm of our circumference, we have to understand, right, that here, anything that, so if you've got a little bit here, a little bit there, few things maybe on our clothes or body, whatever, if you gather it together and it becomes that much or more, if it's more than that, then it's fard, and if it becomes that much, then it's wajib. If it's less than that, then obviously we're excused, we can pray. Now again, it'd be better if a person can remove that even in that state and then pray. But if a person did pray, his prayer will be valid. So you've got three types of impurities, right? So here it says the visible filth, okay, such as blood, for example, if it falls onto the body, onto the garment, right, it can be purified, right? So again, what you have to understand is, just because you got some impurity in clothes, that doesn't mean you have to change all your clothes. This is the classic, obviously, example people tend to use as well. You don't have to change all your clothes. You just wash that little bit there. You just wash that, and you squeeze it, you wring it, and basically is considered pure, right? As long as obviously the impurity has gone. And again, there's a certain way of doing it. So again, if it's visible filth on the body or the garment, then it's purified. Then obviously it has to be purified again, depending on how much it is, right? So again, even if this, you can wash it, and as long as basically if the trace of it has gone, right, if it's visible, then again that's sufficient, right? You don't have to keep washing it. If you want to be a bit on the safe side, wash it 3 times, that's fine, as long as you wring it each time, and that's fine. Another way is that, for example, if it's got something, as long as the water that's running, if that water now, there's no sign of there's no color in it, it's completely clear, then again that's fine. It's considered, now you just wring it and it's fine, it's pure. Even if the stain stays on it, you don't have to always remove the stain. Sometimes blood stain that might be on your clothes for a while, it might take time to wash that out. So if you washed it and basically there's the water that's coming out is clear, then it's considered fine. So be on the safe side, just wash it and squeeze it 3 times or wring it 3 times. But if it's invisible, okay, then obviously you would have to wash it 3 times, because again, now there's no sign of it, right? There's no sign that the impurity is there or is gone, because it's invisible, you can't see it, right? So again, in this case, okay, you would wash it 3 times, and you would wring it each time, so you would squeeze it 3 times, right? And after that, it's pure. Right? After that, you don't need to worry. So for example, if you're out and about and you've got something on your clothes, all you need to do is just do that, what we just said. And yes, you might have a bit of a stain on your clothes, and you might think, oh, what are people going to think, right? But that's beside the point. We're talking about in terms of our ibadah, right? What's more important is our worship, right? And if it means that we're going to miss our worship, or we're going to look a bit daft in front of people, then we rather look a bit daft and obviously get our worship. So here again, obviously you would wash that again, wash it and squeeze it 3 times, and that's sufficient. It's considered pure. So it can be purified with many things, but again, we're not going to go into that chapter, what things you can purify with, because here we have flowing water, and generally, okay, we're going to have that. So again, there's many other rules which are attached to this, right? But again, obviously, we're not going to go into that. Then it goes on. It says again, obviously, we're going to go into. I'm going to try my best, try to keep it simple as possible. Again, obviously, sometimes it's not as easy, right? Try to keep it as simple as possible. Again, keeping in mind the time, right, that we have. Okay, obviously, we've got Maghrib as well, right? So here it says, so the obligation, okay, so the wudu, okay, we talked about the virtues of wudu. So we're going to go into wudu first, right? So the four fard of wudu. So what are the four fard of wudu, right? And again, this is important, because why is this important? Because if we don't know the fard of wudu, then we don't know which part, that if we missed out anything to do with it, if our wudu is valid or not. So if we know that these four are fard, then even if we knew that we've definitely got these four, right? Okay, then at least then you know that anything else we missed out a little bit here and there, you know your wudu still stands. So the first one is washing the face, right? So the face is washed from the hairline. Okay, so where if somebody doesn't have any hair, right? So basically where your hair would usually start from, right? Your forehead, from your hairline, okay, to just below your chin, okay, from earlobe to earlobe, right? So all of that, okay, is considered your face, right? So again, we're going to mention now, somebody's got a beard, somebody's got a thick beard, somebody's got a thin beard, right? So all of this here is fard. Okay, that's the first fard. So if anything, so sometimes you see people, what they might do is they might make wudu, but you'll see that what people tend to do is they might wash it, but they might wash from here and they might leave these sides, right? So again, everything to the earlobe is fard, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes you might see somebody might have a bit of thin hair. I've got a bit of thin hair here, for example. Now somebody might just wash all their face, okay, and this here it would have to get to the skin, whereas the beard, it doesn't have to. If it's a thick beard, it doesn't have to get to the skin. As long as the beard on the skin, as long as that gets washed, is sufficient, right? So again, keep this in mind, okay, that makes sure that, so again, this is why we said that these things are important, because they're the basics, because what happens is repetitive. I mean, it's repetitive. What happens, because we're doing it all the time, we pick up certain mistakes, we forget certain things, and then what happens is it becomes a routine. So this is why every so often we should remind ourselves of the basics, remind ourselves of the simple things, and then because we pick up so many mistakes. So to wash from the hair, okay, make sure all of it, again here, the area between the brows and between the ears, earlobes, right? So here, basically that area there, that skin, make sure that gets wet. Okay, make sure all your face, right, is wet. Again, also make sure that you don't squeeze your eyes shut, because it's makruh. Even some scholars say makruh tahrim, that water should get to the eyelash, even to these bits here. Okay, the water should get to that. So keep your eyes, if you want to close it, it's fine, but don't squeeze it hard closed, right? And so that's the first fard. Okay, that's the first fard that has to be fulfilled. So here, so it's from the hairline to below the chin, from earlobe to earlobe. That's all fard. But again, obviously, what about? But again, somebody without thick beard, right? Somebody with a thin beard, the water would naturally will get to the skin anyway. But basically, this should be a little bit extra careful to make sure the water gets to the skin of the beard, because you can see the skin. Right? Somebody's got a thick beard. Okay, the water doesn't necessarily have to get to the skin, but rather as long as the hair that's on the face, that's covering the thick hair that's covering the skin, as long as that is wet, that's fine. You don't have to necessarily wash the part that's so part of the fard is not to the hair that's hanging off, rather the hair that's on the skin. But again, obviously this comes into it, which we're going to talk again, wash that as well, obviously when we make wudu. So it says, so this is all part of the face. Okay, so this is all considered to be part of the face. Now, when we say washing, what is washing legally in terms of Sharia? What's washing? Because people tend to ask this question as well. They say, can we just wipe, right? If I'm out and about, if I want to do istinja, for example, can I just wipe, right? What's the legal ruling of what is washing in terms of the Sharia? Right? Again, obviously, scholars have slightly different in the books of fiqh, it mentions, but if we could just keep this idea that it says generally washing is that the water flows on your skin, and some scholars said that minimum at least 2 drops fall off. That's considered washing. right? So if you had that much water that you washed, and basically if you know that a few drops fell off, that falls into the category of washing, right? So you couldn't just wipe something, right? Wipe something down and say, I washed it. No, that's not considered washing. Washing is that the water has to flow, and then the water, minimum at least of 2 drops, has to drop. That's the kind of, you can say, the Shari kind of definition. Even the scholars are slightly different on this in the fiqh terms. So anybody who doesn't have a beard, again, obviously to below the chin, so all of that, the face has to be washed properly. All of this is considered part of the first fard. Then it says the next is washing the arms, okay, both arms, okay, including the elbows, right? So a lot of the times what people do is they'll wash and they'll just go like this, right? Or they'll go like that, right? And so it trickles down. But what does it do? It misses other bits in between, right? So because it misses parts in between, is the fard complete? No. So this is why even if somebody were to put their arm under the tap, it's better to do that, knowing that at the same time you're rubbing it, knowing, right, that basically all of it has been washed. This is why some of the scholars said that if, for example, somebody washed their arm and they didn't wash it properly, and they washed it 3 times, right, and every time, in other words, first time it was incomplete, second time, maybe third time it made it complete, that's not considered fulfilling the sunnah, because you have to wash it properly once, then wash it properly second time, wash it properly 3 times. That's fulfilling the sunnah, right? So again, obviously, people have to be very careful, right, that when you wash the arms, make sure that you put it under, if you have to put it under the tap, even if you have to save water, put water, and well, like this, but make sure you rub your arm properly whilst the water's there. You do it once, you do it second time, you do it 3 times, you'll get it right. But if, for example, sometimes people just go like this, and you'll see that the trick might trickle down. So this is important, that especially when we're making wudu, we have to be conscious that we're doing it right. It has to be, our mind has to be there. And again, this is ibadah, this is worship, right? And this is the foundation, right? So that's the second fard. So the second fard is to wash the arms, okay, from the finger to above the elbows, including, okay, the elbows, not up to, okay, not up to here, up to here. The Sahaba Ikram, you see, one of the beauties of this ummah that can be recognized on the day of Qiyamah, how the Prophet is going to recognize by our shining faces, our shining arms, our feet and the head. Why? Because the traces, the effects of wudu. And this is when the Sahaba, some of them heard, what they used to do is they used to wash the arms all the way up to their armpits, right? Just to take the extra barakah, right? So to wash, including the elbows, right? So up to the elbows, make sure that the water goes above the elbows. If it goes a little bit up, it's probably better than a bit down. So again, you wash it properly. So this is the second fard. The third fard, okay, wiping the fourth of the head. So if somebody, for example, the proper way of doing masa, and again, obviously, everything's going to come into here, the mustahab and the sunnah and the fard and everything, right? So we'll just do it. But if somebody just had their wet hand and just wiped a quarter of the head, they consider the fard is done. But the proper way of doing it would be that your hands, which are wet, again, you would these 3 fingers, okay, you would hold it, push it all the way back, so it goes to the back, and then when you push your palms down, then you push your palms forward. So now all of that there is dry because you've used it up. You got the finger, the ibham, and the subaba. Okay, so now what you do is you use this finger. Okay. Now, some books is mentioned this finger. Other books, like Qadr al-Qaik and so other books have mentioned this finger. Right? So use this finger, okay, like this, and then you've got this left, the thumb. Now the thumb from the back of your ear. Right? So now you've basically used up all your hand. All your hand is dry. The only thing that's left is the back of the hand. Now you wipe the nape. Okay, not the neck. It's makruh to do this. Right? You don't do this, but rather you back of the neck. So this, everything falls into here, right? But the fard is, okay, the quarter of the head. And then washing both feet, right? Up to and including the ankles. Right? So again, this is another thing that people have to be very careful, because you see people washing and they don't wash in between their toes. Right? The sunnah way is that you start from your right foot, okay, from the small finger, okay, and use this finger here, okay, and that's what some of the scholars say, mentioned Maraki and so forth with the books, that if somebody just put their feet under the tap and let water run in between their toes, that would be considered the sunnah fulfilled as well. So if, for example, if you were to put your tap into the sink and wash your feet that way, again, sunnah will be fulfilled to some extent. But the proper way of doing it is just use this left hand, small finger, okay, the khinsar, and you clean in between the toes. And that's important because a lot of the time you'll see people, and I've seen people myself, right? And sometimes people take offense when you tell them, right? Okay. I remember there was I know we don't have time. I remember when I was in Syria studying, there was a person I was making wudu, and it looked like a simple type of guy, and he just comes up and he says to me, he says, "Yeah, akhi," I says, "Yes," he says, "You know," he says, this, you did this like this," and he was a Shafi'i, and obviously in the Hanafis is slightly different, right? So I knew exactly what he was trying to say. So subhanAllah, I didn't want to put him off. So mashallah, I kissed him on his forehead and I said, subhanAllah, I said, mashallah, jazakallah khair. I said, so the person was really happy that mashallah, I've helped this person. Right? So even if, for example, there's something that you, again, if somebody you know that is sincere, let that person get the reward, let that, so that it'll encourage that person maybe to help somebody else, not go on the fence, you know, oh, no, I haven't done it wrong, or, you know, I know so-and-so, and, you know, astaghfirullah. So you see people, right? They do these kind of things as well. So sometimes people go on the offensive. So we have to sometimes be careful in telling people as well. So these are the 4 fard, okay, 4 fard of wudu. The basic, again, we say we're on the basics, right? So these are the 4 fard of wudu, and it's 8:25. Oh, time goes so fast. I was thinking I'm not going to get it in, especially me, I sometimes. Okay, right. If we break off for Maghrib, about 10 minutes. And inshallah, we start again as soon as possible, inshallah, 5 to 10 minutes, inshallah. If everybody breaks up for Maghrib, inshallah, we'll join you after Maghrib, inshallah. We'll give us tawfiq, inshallah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala sayyidil anbiya wal mursaleen. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يقربنا اليك ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. Okay, just a quick question. Somebody just asked, I think some people just joined, as if we could just go through the faraid again. Just a quick recap. The four fard of wudu. First one, washing your face. And the face is we said, from the hairline to below your chin, from earlobe to earlobe. So all of that has to be wet. So if anything there remains dry, then your fard is incomplete and your worship is incomplete. So the first fard is from the hairline, because we said before, if somebody doesn't have hair, but usually where the hair would start from, the top of the forehead, from the hairline to below your chin. We said if somebody's got a beard, as long as, if it's a thick beard, as long as the hair on the beard, as long as on the face, that gets wet, right? That's washed properly. Even if this is, you do hilal afterwards, as long as the face on the beard gets washed properly. So again, next to the ears and everything. First fard. Second fard is washing your arms. And we said from your finger to above your elbows, including your elbows. And if you go a little bit further up, is better, safer than going a little bit further down. So make sure, we said, that you wash your arms properly and thoroughly, not just like this some people do, right? But rather you wash it properly and rub it properly each time to above your elbows. That's the second fard. Third fard, the masa. Somebody's asked how to do the masa again. Again, you got your three fingers, right? So your hands are all wet, right? Your hands are all wet. Okay. Now you've got three fingers. So these three, okay, from here, okay. So these two stay up. Only these three fingers, you do masa all the way to the back, okay. So once you get to the back, then you push down on your palms, and now you push your palms forward. Now all of this is dry. The only thing that you got left that's wet is these two. So now with your finger, this finger here, okay, in your ears and all in your ears, around your ears, okay, all basically the inner side of your ears. Again, same thing with this. And then you've got this thumb, and with this thumb is behind the ears, right? Okay. And now you've got the back of the hands, okay. Okay. Okay, right. So so again, so the back of the hands, okay. So everything else is, now you've used up your fingers now, front part of the hand. Now back of the hands, okay. With so the back of the hands that are left, so you would do the back of your neck. Basically, it's considered the nape, right? So you do the masa of the nape, not like this, right? Not with the neck. This is considered makruh. This is considered, according to the Hanafis, okay, this is considered is karaha in that. It's makruh, is disliked to do it like this. Right? So again, okay, you would do the back of the neck, right? And this is what's in the books, according to the, obviously we don't have time to go into the dalails and so forth. Right? But again, obviously, according to the dalails, it would be karaha, okay, it would be makruh to actually do it all the way here. So this is why you do just the back of the neck. So these are the four fard. Okay, this is, I think, we touched upon. Okay, sorry, the last one. Okay, so that's the masa of the head is the third one, and the last one we said is your feet, right? Again, obviously, you wash your feet thoroughly in between the toes, right? We said with the little finger on the left hand, okay, in between your toes. Now you start from the small, okay, and all the way up, right, all the way around. So it should be in between your toes, should be washed properly, because if any of that stays dry, then obviously it would be the fard will be incomplete if something stays dry. So this is why you wash and you start your washing of the feet from the toes, from the front, and you go backwards. Likewise, the masa, going to the Hanafis, you start from the front and you go backwards. You don't go backwards to the front. Okay. So them are the four fard. Okay, the four fard which are basically an obligation. So in other words, nothing of this could be missed out. Nothing could be, if anything of this was missed out, then obviously your wudu is incomplete. So these are the four fard. Then you got the sunnah, okay, and then you got the sunnah, and you got the sunnah mu'akkada, okay, like the emphasized sunnah. Emphasized sunnah is anything which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he did, or even the Khulafa Rashidin, okay, which they did regularly and consistently, okay, and maybe left it once or twice, okay. This is considered emphasis. This is considered Sunnah Mu'akkada. Okay. So he says, so here is Sunnah Mu'akkada. So he says, if again, obviously, if somebody left them, okay, there would be a sin to some extent, but not like a sin missing a wajib. Okay. Again, obviously, it all depends on the emphasis on that sunnah, okay, in the hadith and so forth as well. Right? So the first thing is obviously the intention. So the intention can be in the heart. Okay, so when you say I'm going to make wudu, that's sufficient, right? That you're going to make wudu, that intention will suffice. Using the miswak, again, obviously not everybody can use the miswak, right? And so forth. So if somebody just use their finger, okay, that'll be sufficient. Even some places mention use their thumb, okay, that will suffice. Okay, if you can. Mentioning the name of Allah, reading, starting with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now here there's an issue here because in the UK here, most cases, we have the bathroom with the toilet in the bathroom. So anything where there's a toilet, you cannot mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there will be no tasmiyah, right? So there will be no Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, you could make the dua, okay, before you enter the bathroom, not in the bathroom, before you enter the bathroom, when you enter. And you can make that intention with Bismillah if you wanted that. I'm doing it when I start the wudu, right? But again, nothing in the bathroom, unless somebody's got a bathroom separate and they've got a toilet separate, they've got a bathroom without a toilet, then you can read the du'as and you can read the Bismillah and you can read everything else. Okay, so this is okay. Reading mention the name of Allah, reading Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, this is again considered by one of the Sunnah Mu'akkada. Washing the hands up to and including the wrists, okay, in the beginning of wudu, right? It's part of the Sunnah Mu'akkada. So this is when you start, what do? You wash your hands. And now again, there's a lot of emphasis on washing hands at the moment, right? And they're telling us to do it for what is it? 40 seconds or something, or for 20 seconds or something like that. Anyway, right? At the moment they're saying, right? So the Islam teaches us, this is a teaching of Islam already taught to us, that you wash your hands thoroughly, okay, and in between, okay, properly, and up to the wrists, including the wrists. So basically, that's the first thing you should do, when you start your wudu, because unknowingly we could have touched so many things. Now, obviously, we're probably more observant of this at the moment because of the coronavirus, right? That we think, oh, I might have touched something, so I better wash my hands. But outside this scenario, sometimes you might think, oh no, I didn't really touch anything. I've just, but there's so many things that unknowingly we would touch. So obviously, the first thing you do, so the sunnah is to wash the hands at the start. Okay, so up to the wrist in the beginning of the wudu. This is part of the sunnah, so including the wrist. Maintaining order. Okay, so again here, this is according to the Hanafis. According to the Shafis is different. Okay, so this is tartib. According to the Hanafis is a sunnah mu'akkada, right? So the order of the limbs. So this is more referred to in terms of what's come in the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha qumtum ila salati faghsilu wujuhakum wa aydiyakum ila al-marafiq wamsahu bi ru'usikum wa arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn. Right? So here, this ayah here in this order. So basically, wash your faces first, wash your arms next, okay, do the masa of the head next, and then wash your feet. There's more of the fara'id is talking about here. So this is the tartib. This is basically the sequence of that it should be in. This is according to the Hanafis. This is sunnah. So if somebody, for example, according to the Shafis is fard, right? So if a Hanafi, if he was to jump into a river, right, and jump back out, his wudu is done. Right? Even though he might not have done it in order, his wudu is done, okay, because it's not fard for us to do it in this order. Yes, we should do it because it's sunnah mu'akkada, right? And we shouldn't make a habit of not doing it in this order, right? But if we didn't, our wudu still stands, right? So maintaining the order of the limbs. So basically, this is according to not like rinsing our mouth and rinsing our nose. This is talking more of the fara'id, okay, that's mentioned in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next sunnah mu'akkada is continuation. Okay, so you have to continuously, okay, do it. So what it means by this is that not pausing for a second or have a chat in between, okay, or do something else, right? So when you do your wudu, okay, do your wudu continuously. This is Sunnah Mu'akkada, right? And complete your wudu first. This is why they say it's better that you don't talk when you're doing it, because there's so many angels surrounding you, right? And you lose that barakah as well. Washing those limbs, okay, that are washed, okay, washing them again 3 times. So each limb to wash 3 times. Again, obviously that's Sunnah Mu'akkada. If we can do that, that's what that does, is if in case we miss something out, right, then obviously it completes that. Right? But if somebody is, so it's far to wash it once. So if somebody feels content that they have washed it properly and they've not missed anything out when they're washing the arm or washing the face once, then that's sufficient. Right? But again, they've left the Sunnah. Okay. Then obviously rinsing the mouth 3 times. Again, this is Sunnah. Rinsing the nose 3 times. This is Sunnah. Running the fingers through the beard. Okay, this is called khilal of the beard. Right. So the way of doing this would be to have your hands wet, okay, and run it through the fingers. Through your fingers through the beard, okay, with your wet hands, and make sure, because remember when you're washing, make sure that all of the hair that's on your face, okay, that gets wet thoroughly, right? Okay. So here, okay, if a person so here you wash your face properly, right? So everything on your face, okay, gets washed properly. So again, the beard, okay, halal of the beard. So again, it's good to wash the beard, but again, the sunnah way is that you wet your hands and your fingers and you run them through your beard, okay, from the bottom. Okay, that's also Sunnah Mu'akkada. So if somebody's asked, okay, so somebody jumped into a river, right? And their wuzu is done. What about somebody else jumped in with them? Right? Yes, their wuzu will be fine as well. Why? Because there's a certain amount of water, okay, like 5 meters squared. If anything bigger than that, okay, or the river which is flowing, water which is flowing, then what happens is the water keeps moving, right? So you have tahir ghair mutahhir, which means that sometimes water is pure, but it doesn't purify, right? So that's used water called. The water that's been used for wudu is called ma' musta'mal in Arabic, right? So, but again, a river is so big, okay, that again, obviously, and plus the water might be flowing as well, that it won't make any difference. Okay, somebody has asked a question. If, for example, you're in wudu and you picked a spot, right, and it started bleeding. Now, again, the same rule, that's going to come anyway, the things that break wudu. The same ruling would apply that if, for example, if it starts bleeding to the point that it can flow, if anything you have a cut wound, anything, blood, any blood that basically comes up in that wound but doesn't move anywhere else onto the skin, then that wudu is not broken, because it's not considered as flowing. It's not considered that it's got a quwwat to saylan. Basically means that it doesn't have the power to move, right? So in other words, it might bubble up in that surface, okay, it might pop, but it won't go anywhere else. It doesn't go anywhere on your skin. So that same rule will apply, again, depending how much, if any blood did come out. If nothing came out, then you're fine. If blood did come out, again, then obviously it would break it, right, and so forth. So again, obviously the ruling of that, inshallah, I think is probably going to come if we get to it, and the things that which break wudu. Right? But again, also just remember that any blood that stays within the wound, that doesn't come out, that blood is not impure. So if that blood goes on your clothes, so let's say it stayed there and then afterwards it didn't move anywhere else and it went on your clothes, that blood is not considered impure. The only blood which is impure is the blood which flows. Right? So it goes on anyway. So it's running wet fingers, okay, between the fingers and toes as well. Okay, that's another sunnah. Okay, so like we said before, right? So your khilal of the fingers and the toes. Okay, there's in between the toes. It's all sunnah, again, making sure that the fard is done completely, okay, and properly. Wiping the entire head once. Okay, so ears with the same. So we said a quarter of the head is fard, okay, and doing all of the head, okay, like we just mentioned before, sunnah, mustahab, things fall into there, all of them fall into them. He said rubbing the limbs when washing them, okay, so again, this is also a sunnah. Again, we should try to rub, especially not just, sometimes you see people, like we said before, just I've seen people just go like this, right? Again, you should try, okay, to to rub. So when you wet it, make sure you rub it, right? Because if you don't rub it, then obviously something in between could stay dry, right? So rubbing again is sunnah. So rubbing is starting again. Another sunnah is start with the right limb. Okay, and the Muslim, as Muslims, we always start everything with the right, which is good. Right? The shaitan starts opposite, right? So this is why we always start with the right limb first, right? When you're washing the arms or the feet, right? Starting with the tips of the fingers and toes, okay, when washing the arm and feet, okay, so tips of fingers and tips and toes, right? Tips of the toes when you're washing the feet or when you're washing the arms, right? This is all part of the sunnah. Starting with again, we said that when you're wiping, again, this is part of the sunnah that we, according to us, and we start from the front, okay, not from the back, okay. Again, this according to the Hanafi madhab, there might be difference in other madhabs. Okay, starting with the front of the head. So this is a sunnah. So wiping the also is we said back of the neck. We just talked about that. Okay, that we said that all falls into. We just when I told you how to do it, everything fell into that. Okay, and obviously the mandub and so forth also falls into this. Okay, when we some of the things that we just showed you before. Anyway, right, so it says, then it goes on. It says the the adab of wudu, right? So what's considered adab, okay, in terms of the Sharia, okay, as we said, what's the sunnah and what's the adab? Okay, so adab is the etiquettes, right, of in terms of the Sharia, right? So this is something which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did once or twice, but not establishing it as a sunnah, okay, but it's there, right? So again, obviously, this is part of the etiquettes, okay. So again, with this, if somebody does it, then obviously the reward is there, and if somebody doesn't, then obviously there's no sin upon it, right? So what's the adab? The adab is, if we can, again, sometimes it's not always, these are not always possible, right? But a lot of time when you see in the masjids, and you see them when they make the wudu area, okay, they might, if they know what they're doing, right? Or if they consult the scholars, right? Then obviously they'll have certain things. So here, facing the qibla, okay, when you're making wudu, okay, that's not always possible, right? That's one of the adab. There's another one, again, this is funny. Remember, there was a sheikh, and he used to wear an apron when he used to make a wudu, because there's some opinion in the Hanafi madhab that the water that you use, that once you've used after water, the water that's, or any splashes and so forth, some said that obviously it becomes a kind of stronger impurity. So some scholars used to wear an apron. But again, obviously, this is a part of the adab that we try our best that we don't get too much water all over us. Right? That also falls into the adab. Making the dua, okay, that comes in the hadith. Okay, the أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله اللهم اجعلني من التوابين واجعلني من المتطهرين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. So he says, if you can do, again, that will do. You will make that dua when you come out, right? Not obviously in the bathroom. Again, obviously, if we've got a toilet separate to the bathroom, then we should mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every limb that we wash. Again, that falls into the adab. Okay. Again, another adab is that you do the wudu yourself. Okay, that you don't get somebody else. There's nothing wrong with somebody bringing you water. Okay, and so forth. But to help you physically do wudu, okay, there's karaha in that, unless obviously there's a valid excuse, somebody's not well or ill or something, then obviously in that situation is fine. Otherwise, okay, it would be considered, there would be some karaha. Okay, now somebody's asked a question. He says, if you forget one of the fard, right, and you've made the wudu, right, and then you realize, then he said, do you have to repeat all the wudu again? Okay, you don't necessarily have to repeat it again. Obviously, you've left the sunnah, okay, but again, if, let's say, for example, you forgot to wash your face and you went straight and start washing your arms and started doing, and then you realize I didn't wash my face, you can always just wash your face again. You don't have to do all the wudu, but it'd be better if you can do it in sequence, right? But again, if you just wash the face, then it's still fine, as long as the fara'id are fulfilled. Okay, that's sufficient. So again, another. So going on to the adab. Okay, so doing wudu yourself. It says to again, making wudu before the prayer time comes in. So what is this? This is like the adab, because what it is you're ready physically and mentally. You're prepared for your prayer. Right? We had a sheikh, subhanAllah, when I was in Syria, and he used to live probably from Muslim College or Mustafa Center to about, I'd say, about White Abbey Road, probably even further than that. And he used to come to that mosque to pray, and he used to come before, and he used to prepare himself mentally, right? That he's going to go in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So you have them kind of people as well. So he said, this is what, that you make wudu before, and you're already in preparation that you're going to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Okay, so it's a rushing, okay, to perform wudu, okay, before the time comes in, okay, unless obviously somebody's got valid excuse, then obviously that's a different matter, man. The reading Ashhadu an la, if you don't know the dua, if you just read Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah after, okay, that's also part of the adab, and there's more things on that, okay, but obviously you don't have the time. But the water that you've got left after you make wudu, right, again, it's part of the adab, so it doesn't get wasted, right? The water left over, to drink that water. So remember, it's not impure water, right? Water that's in whatever you've used to make wudu, it's not exactly going to be impure, right? So he said to drink that water. Again, this is part of the adab. Those things which are makruh in wudu, okay, I think the most important thing today, I think we're all probably falling into this category, wasting water, right? I think you really appreciate when you don't have it. I remember when in Pakistan, I think last year, the year before, and we were making wudu, and how you were so careful, and you think to yourself, and you think, subhanallah, how much we waste back home, right? When you've got limited, you're mindful of it, right? So here it says one of the, it's wasting water, right? And this is like leaving the tap open and having a little chat, leaving the tap open. If you wash the limb, close the tap and then rub the limb, okay, then open it again, wash it again, and then close the tap, right? And so forth. So we don't have to leave it open and keep it flowing, right? So the israf, okay, so basically the wasting of the water, right? So he also here, some scholars here basically said that anything which is deemed more than you need, okay, so anything more than that you need, okay, the water that you waste is considered israf, is considered to be a wastage, right? Using too little water as well, okay, when washing. So somebody might think, oh well, I better not waste water, so they might just put 1 or 2 drops on and make sure they get all the arm in, right? Okay, right. No, again, that's again karaha as well, because there has to be enough water for it to flow on the limb, and we said before that the legal definition is that at least 2 drops, right, fall. Another thing that's makruh in wudu is you see people, they get water and splash it on their face, like slapping it on the face. That's considered makruh, right? The way, again, what is it doing? This is kind of demeanor. This is like the face of a believer is considered kind of a blessing, right? So what you're doing is you're there's not adab, that bit, it's not adab, it's not respectful, that basically you're slapping your face with the water. So the way you would get water and you would pour it from the top and then rub your face down, right? So this is also makruh, okay, when you're washing the face. Speaking during wudu, we just talked about that, but again, this is also part of the makruhat, right? Other than making dua or reading some of the other things, obviously, they're all fine. Okay, somebody asked the question, if you've got a plaster bandage, again, it all depends as to what, so for example, if you've got a plaster or a bandage, right, now is it harmful for you to remove that bandage, right, or is it harmful to wet that limb? Okay, all of these things will be taken into consideration, right? So if, for example, let's say you've had a dressing done and you can't do it yourself, a nurse will have to come and do it. So by you opening that is going to be a problem. Then you just wipe over the bandage, right? You don't need to take the bandage off, right? If, for example, it's possible for you to take it off and wash it, right, If, for example, you've been told, no, don't get water on it because it's going to make, then again, just wipe over the bandage. So it all depends as to the situation. Each situation is different, right? And the circumstance of that individual, right? But if, for example, if it's a bandage that's harmful to remove, or the water, it's harmful for the water to get into the skin, then what do? You wipe over the bandage, right? If, first of all, they say that if it's harmful to wash the limb and it's okay to wipe over the limb, then you would take the bandage off and you would wipe over the limb. If, for example, it's harmful even to wipe over the limb, then you would wipe over the bandage, right? And again, a situation where somebody, nurse comes and dresses and so forth, right? And obviously it's difficult to open. So then again, in that case, you would wipe over the bandage, right? All depends on how it is. So it goes on, it says, so speaking during wudu, unless obviously you're making dua. And again, we said before that somebody else helping you, okay, in wudu, without valid excuse, again, is considered karaha. Right? The conditions for wudu to be valid, right? So for it to stand, right? So wudu for it to stand. It's because the important thing is that the water gets to the skin. Okay, this is important, right? So even though I've been told today, especially sisters wear nail polish and stuff like that, right? You've got to be careful. If you've got, for example, when you're doing the door or whatever, okay, even brothers could be doing it. It doesn't have to be necessarily sisters, right? Today we see men wearing certain things as well, right? So both ways, right? Again, anything that prevents the water getting to the skin, right? Then that condition is not fulfilled. The wudu is not valid, right? So it says, the water that's used to purify that limb, okay, it gets to the skin. And today I've been told that there's waterproof nail polishes, so I don't know how that works. I don't know, right? So it says the water should get to the skin, right? Limbs should be washed thoroughly. So there should be nothing preventing the water getting to it, right? They say unless obviously somebody, so for example, let's say if somebody's a painter, right, that's his profession, and it's difficult for that person to take out all the paint every time when he does wudu and so. So they say he's excused, right? He does his best, and if something stays in between, then obviously his excuse is okay. But other than that, okay, generally, okay, people, they would have to remove everything properly and make sure that they wash the limbs, because nothing's stopping the water getting to the skin. So remove anything basically which blocks the water reaching the surface of the skin, if you can call it. It says, and again, obviously, the other thing is any state that would make you impure. So, for example, if somebody's in a state of major impurity, it's no point you making wudu, okay, because you're already in the state of impurity. So you have to remove those things, or a woman in a menstruation. So again, these things have to be removed in order to become pure. Right? So you can't be making wudu to make yourself pure, but in a state of impurity, right? So it goes anyway. So it goes on. It says the categories of wudu, right? There's is obligatory, right? Fard. Okay, so it says when a person's in a state of it says minor impurity. We talked about this before: the major impurity, the minor impurity, right? Minor impurity, where a person then needs a wudu, right? Hadath al-asghar, right? So it says persons in a minor impurity. And the person wants to do the following. So, for example, if somebody wants to pray, obviously now it's fard for them to make wudu in order to pray, because you're not allowed to pray without wudu, which naturally, right, everybody knows. The other thing is when you're in a prostration. If you don't do a prostration, whether sajda tilawa or anything other prostration, you would have to be in a state of wudu to perform that. Right? So you see, for example, a lot of footballers, right, when they score a goal and they might go into prostration. Now you have to question it. I don't know if on the other madhabs, I don't know, there might be some kind of leverage, right? But according to us, we have to be in a state of again, obviously, there's a whole thing where the Imam Sahib said whether you should do sajda or whether you should read two nafil. That's a completely different story, right? So prostration for recital, okay, if you want to do the sajda tilawa, you would have to be in the state of prostration, so in state of wudu. Right? This is fard upon you. It says touching a verse of the Quran, unless it's not attached to something. So, for example, I don't know. I've got a book here, right? So let's say I've got this book, and I've got a covering on top of it. Now, if I've got a covering and I've got the two sides of the book inside that cover, and that cover is closing it, now I can't touch that if I don't have wudu. But if, for example, I take out the two sides, right? I take out the two sides and I'm carrying it as though like it's like this. Now I've taken out the two sides of that, and it's like this. Okay, like this. Now that's fine. Okay, that's fine because it's not physically attached to the Quran. But if the two sides of the Quran are in its cover, then now that becomes part of it, it's attached to it. So I couldn't touch that without wudu. Okay. So the touching of the verse of the Quran, and now this applies to anything, whether it doesn't have to necessarily be the Quran, even if it's a coin or any paper, anything with the verse of the Quran, it cannot be touched without wudu. Right? It doesn't necessarily, and with the Quran, nothing, you can't touch the margin of the Quran, the side of the Quran, nothing of the Quran without wudu. Right? Now, obviously, scholars have differed whether the tafsirs and stuff and books of fiqh and stuff like that, can you touch them without wudu? That's a completely different matter, right? Some scholars say that you can touch the books of fiqh, but you shouldn't touch the specific ayah, right? Whereas in tafsirs, again, there's difference of opinion, okay, because there's more tafsir in it than actual Quran. So again, this goes into a completely different area. Right? So it's a touching a verse of the Quran, okay. This is also, you would have to have fard. So it would be fard upon you to have wudu. Right? You couldn't touch it unless obviously we said, unless there's a barrier, like we said before, something not attached to it, then yeah. If somebody doesn't have wudu and they want to touch the Quran, they want to move it from one place to another, you can pick a tissue up and pick it and put it somewhere else. What you can't do, what's makruh, is to use your sleeve because this is attached to you. You couldn't use your sleeve and pick it up, right? Or something which is, you can use a tissue or something, or clean towel or something like that, and you can do that, but you couldn't do that with them. So I got my glasses off, so I can't sometimes see the questions. Right? Okay. Somebody asked a question: can you make wudu whilst you got lipstick on? Again, obviously, you have to see, is it waterproof or is it not waterproof? Right? If it's something that doesn't allow the water to get to your lips. Now, again, when you say lips, right, what you shouldn't do when you wash your wudu, when you wash your face, you shouldn't, not like that, because the outer part of the face, the outer part of the lips are actually part of the face, right? So again, the water would have to reach them. So if, for example, so maybe you can, I mean, I don't know, there must be a way to know whether they're waterproof or not, whether it allows water to penetrate or not. So again, there are different kinds, right? So if it allows the water to penetrate, then you're fine. But if it doesn't allow the water and it's a barrier, then obviously that would have to be removed, okay? And then maybe once you made the wudu, then you can put it back on. Okay. Okay. Right. So wudu, just do the last thing and then we'll move into ghusl because obviously we're running out of time. Okay. I think we'll miss some of these things. Okay. So these are the three things which is fard, and just one more, okay, which is wajib, okay, for you to have wudu, and that's when you do tawaf of the Kaaba, right? It's wajib for you to be in a state of wudu, even though some scholars have slightly different, but generally the Hanafi madhab is wajib for you to be in a state of wudu, okay, to do the tawaf of the Kaaba. So we won't go into the mandub and so forth because we're running out of time. We'll just do the things which nullify the wudu, and then obviously we'll go into the ghusl, because obviously we're running out of time. Right? So the things which break wudu, okay, anything which exits from the two openings, right? So the rear or the front, anything that exits from there, it would break the wudu, right? There's for females, okay, if they have clear discharge from the front, okay, sometimes some women have that. Some scholars said that this is like sweat, so it won't break the wudu, right? So other scholars have said that if they're in a situation where they can make wudu, then they should make wudu, right? But if they're in a difficult situation, then they're okay to pray with that, right? So that's probably a safer option, as some scholars have said. So it says anything which would exit from the two exits, okay, two openings, okay, would break the wudu. So number one, number two will break the wudu, or anything else, okay, that would come from with male. You've got mazi and madi, okay, which is clear stuff that comes out, which is not actual, not the same as sperm basically, but it's other things, clear stuff. If that comes out, then obviously again, females as well applies to, okay, it's called pre-cum. That would break your wudu, but the ghusl would not become fard upon you. So anything which basically flows, so for example, blood we talked about before, any wound that you have, if the blood flows, okay, if it's got power to flow. Now what does that mean? That means that if you had a cut and you got a piece of cloth or tissue, whatever, and you put it on there, now you've removed it, okay, you moved it, now both ways it will break the wudu. But if you waited for a while and you think, okay, it doesn't have ability to move, now you can wash it off, now it's fine. But somebody just, as soon as they're bleeding, they put tissue on there, now it's considered as though it's moved from its place. So that would also break the wudu. Okay, sleeping in a position, okay, that they say if your buttocks are firm on the ground, if somebody fell asleep, okay, it would not break the wudu, because what happens is when a person sits, it closes off the muscles. So even if you fell asleep, you know that no wind will exit. Right? So basically, it won't break your wudu. But if somebody lays down, it will break their wudu. So somebody, for example, was a bit tired and they wanted to, let's say somebody got up for the Hajj, for example, right? And they thought, okay, I want to wait for Fajr, and I'm getting a bit tired, right? If they just sat down firm on the ground with the buttocks on the floor, right, not with the legs up, the firm kind of, and they fell asleep, okay, they would not break the wudu, okay, because no air, no wind would leave, and obviously would not break the wudu. I'm just going to quickly, because I'm going to go into wudu, go into the ghusl, because obviously I've just been told that obviously time is running out, right? So insanity, okay, a person's unconscious, all of these things will break the wudu, because a person won't know what state is in, whether they broke wind or no. Okay, so obviously it will break the wudu. Right? Laughing loud in namaz, right? Again, we can't even do, they say that there's certain things that comes in the hadith, because it comes in the hadith and we accept it, we don't understand the logic behind it, right? So this comes in the hadith, if somebody laughs loud where the person next to you can hear you, your wudu would break and your prayer would break, so we'd have to make your wudu again. So okay, let's go into the ghusl. Okay, so ghusl is there's 3 fard of ghusl, right? And it says first one is rinsing the mouth, okay, once. Now here we said rinse in the mouth, not gargling the mouth. People have to be very careful. It's better to gargle, okay, when you're not fasting. We hear people think, oh, gargling is the fard, right? So what people do when they're fasting, if you gargle, there's a possibility it will break your wudu. I mean, break your fast. Because they say that when you gargle, the water goes down your throat. Once you can taste it in your throat, your fast could break. So this is why, even if if somebody has had the marriage relation with their spouses, or had a wet dream, whichever it is, if somebody, for example, if ghusl becomes fard on that person, then the person, if they're fasting, what you do is you rinse your mouth thoroughly, okay, but don't gargle. And then I usually advise people that if you wake up before the fast closes, okay, and you've got enough time, and you think I don't have enough time to have a bath, then at least rinse your mouth properly and gargle properly. So at least you know you've done that part properly. Put water in your nose and properly so it gets to the soft bone. At least you know you've done that. The rest of the ghusl you can do after. So again, it doesn't affect your fast as well. You can be in that state and be fasting and have a ghusl after the Fajr time and come in after the time for fast has ended. You still, obviously that's a completely different matter. Inshallah, the Mashaykh are going to talk about that, inshallah, in the next topic that's going to be covered. So anyway, rinsing of the mouth, okay, once at least is fard, okay, when you, for ghusl, right? So if it becomes fard upon a person, then it's the first one is that you have to rinse the mouth. Second is you have to put water up your nose and it gets to the soft bone at least. Okay? Again, when you're fasting, don't sniff it up, because if it goes up, okay, and you can taste it in your throat, then it could break your fast, right? So this is why what you do, you be careful and you put the water up. As long as you know that you felt it on the soft bone, that's sufficient. Don't sniff it up. Right. So, but again, if you're not fasting, then it's fine. Okay, make sure that obviously you can exaggerate a little bit. Make sure that you've done it properly. That's the second fard. Okay, and the third fard, okay, is that wash every limb of your body, every hair of your body. Right. So in other words, every hole in your body, right, make sure that you pass your finger in it. Right, especially females, okay, make sure that in the private, make sure that you pass your finger around there, okay, because the water has to reach there, okay, because it's part of the fard that it has. And with males, okay, make sure that obviously your belly button and your navel and all of these things, okay, make sure that everybody, obviously generally, okay, and I always say if you were a Rambo back in the day, you got some bullet wounds, right, make sure that make sure water gets into those holes as well as, okay, I've got a few questions coming on, we're running out of time here as well, okay. Okay, somebody else, can you read Quran on electronic on the phone basically, or iPad or whatever it is? Yes, you can. Right? Yes, you can. You don't need to wudu for that. But again, because there's so much ikhtilaf of the scholars upon this, right? I always say to people, advise people, just be cautious in touching the ayahs. Rather, just you got arrows to move, okay, or something else to maybe turn the page over. Probably more cautious position is that, right? Okay, I think I'll come to the. Okay, right. Okay, I think we're running out of time. So, okay, we'll come to the question, inshallah, if you have some time. Right? And the third one is, okay, to wash all your limbs, okay, sorry, all your body, and make sure every hair gets wet. Okay, the entire body at least once. Okay, it's fard. Right? Again, obviously, people have to. So when you're having a ghusl, make sure that people will tend to is once you had the ghusl, you rub. You should be rubbing whilst you're washing. So whilst you're washing, you should be rubbing your body. So make sure that everything gets wet properly. Right? And then obviously in that case, obviously you know that you haven't missed anything out. Right? Okay. Okay. Some of the sunnahs of the ghusl, emphasize sunnahs of the ghusl, okay, which we talked about before. Right? Make intention. Okay, so intention is again is to purify yourself. Okay, from impurity. Washing the hands up to the wrists. So the sunnah way is the first thing that you do is you wash your hands. Now, your hands are not impure anymore, right? Because you wash them. It's a limb that's been washed, right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to keep with the questions as well, because obviously as they're going to go up, and I'm not very savvy with these things, right? Okay, I don't quite understand that question. Okay, so it says the third fard of ghusl, to pass water through every hole. So basically we said that your belly button, okay, make sure you put your finger in there and make sure the water gets in there, because sometimes what happens is somebody might have a bath, okay, and the navel, for example, sometimes it might be a little bit covered, right, and the water might not get into there, right? So this is why, okay, that could stay dry and your fard is not done, right? So this is why you put water, okay, and make sure you put your finger in the navel, make sure the water goes in there, right? The women, make sure that the private area, make sure you put your finger in there, the inner, okay, make sure that the water gets into there and that's washed properly, because that's part of the body. Because sometimes what happens, you can wash the outer and just the inner might get missed a bit. Okay. Okay, we're going to come to that now. Okay, this is a good question. It says it says if your work involves making frames with Quranic ayahs, right? Yes, you should be in a state of wudu, especially if you're writing ayahs, right, of the Quran. If you're writing like another even like recitation of the Quran ayah, if it was just a word and then you stop again, if you're going to write the whole ayah, then it's considered as though the whole Quran. So again, obviously you would have to be in a state of wudu. Okay, can you apply makeup after wudu and pray? That's fine, as long as you know that there's nothing in the ingredients of the makeup is fine. As long as your wudu is done, okay, before, then it's fine. Okay, so let's carry on. Okay, so I'm just get to now. Okay, so intention. We said you make the intention, washing the hands. Okay, onto the wrists. Okay, that's again part of the sunnah. The first thing you do is wash your hands. Then you know that you've cleansed your hands, right? The next thing you should do is, and I will say to the people, it says, wash your private parts. Again, if somebody, for example, has had a wet dream or obviously had a bad relation with their spouse, in this scenario, I would say, again, relieve yourself, go to the toilet. Right? The reason being, because if something came out after you had a ghusl and you haven't been to the toilet, then you have to repeat your ghusl. But if you've been to toilet, okay, and then, okay, after that you did a ghusl and something came out, then you won't have to do, okay, ghusl again. So this is why I go to toilet and relieve yourself, and then basically do wash your private parts. Okay, wash your hands, wash your private parts. Okay, front and the rear properly. Okay, this is all part of the sunnah. And wash off if you've got any filth on your body, make sure you wash that off first, because what happens, you have ghusl and you don't wash that off, what happens, that washes onto the rest of the body, right? So obviously the rest of the body gets covered. And the other thing is, sunnah is to, if you can, make wudu, right? So basically, when you even if you get into the shower, all you need to do is wash your hands, okay, and quickly rinse your mouth and rinse your nose and wash your face, okay, and masa on your head and your arms, and whilst you're in the shower. And if the water gathers up in the shower or the bath, then you can leave your feet to the end and wash your feet at the end, right? If not, just quickly wash your feet. Right? Otherwise, but to make the wudu, okay. So again, just remember now, again, if somebody has made ghusl and they've washed the limbs properly, okay, all of the limbs, the wudu is done as well. But the sunnah way is to make wudu, okay, before you actually start your ghusl, or whilst you're making your ghusl, right? So he says again, so do wudu, and followed by obviously pouring water over the entire body. Okay, so he said you start with the head, okay, for a total of 3 times, then 3 times on your right, 3 times on your left. So when we say 3 times on your left, this is all from your shoulder all the way down to your feet, right? So if you see now, if you put, now again, we've got showers and so forth. So if somebody just to fulfill that sunnah, stood under the shower on the right side and just rubbed their body down, and stood, on the left side and rubbed their body down just with the intention of fulfilling the sunnah, then alhamdulillah, that's fulfilled, right? That'll be sufficient. Right? That will suffice as a sunnah. So again, start with the head, okay, and then 3 times on the right side, 3 on the left side, and then rub all your body and make sure that any holes in your body, make sure you put your finger in there and so forth, to make sure that okay, when would you need ghusl? Okay, right, that's coming now. Okay, ghusl is fard, okay, in the following situation, right? If obviously anybody has an ejaculation, okay, so that could be whichever way, right? But generally, okay, if somebody's married, okay, or if somebody had a wet dream, okay, all of these situations, okay, if somebody obviously was, how should I put it? Okay, but anyway, so ejaculation basically that would make for the ghusl, right? Whichever way it is. It says, and so that you'll be in a hadath al-akbar, then you will be in a major impurity there. So obviously, in order for you to, so in a state of major impurity, you're not even allowed to read the ayah of the Quran, for example, right? So this is how severe it is, right? Now, if somebody, for example, had a fast and they didn't have ghusl, for example, let's say they had they had a bad dream or whatever it is, or had a marital relation with the wife, again, it wouldn't affect their fast. They can stay in that state, but obviously it's haram because they're missing the prayer, and obviously they're sinful because they're in that stage. Right? And the other is obviously menstruation. If a woman, okay, after menstruation, then obviously ghusl becomes fard. Okay, so these are the main 2 where it becomes fard. Okay, ejaculation. Okay, and that could be both male or female, right? And the second is basically the menstruation or postnatal bleeding as well. That's if a woman has a child, right? It's wajib when some people have said that it's also, some said fard, some said wajib here actually. Some said if somebody becomes a Muslim, right, somebody enters Islam in a state of major impurity, then obviously that person would have to, some say it's fard, some say it's wajib, okay, that person would have to have ghusl, because obviously it's going to go into the next stage now, right? When is it recommended? Okay, it's recommended for the Friday prayer, because why? One of the reasons is because whenever you congregate, because the last thing you want is be making the next person next to you uncomfortable. Right? Friday prayer, the 2 Eid prayers, okay, entering the state of Ihram, okay, the day of Arafah, all of these things, okay, these are all these are all recommended. You don't have to, but these are all recommended. Right? Also, there's a reward for it obviously on a Friday and Eid and so forth. Right? Entry Mecca, okay, entry Medina, okay, to Munawwara, and visiting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, that one you should go in the best, right? Because you're visiting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also, he says there's one more. We've got a few minutes, inshallah. We'll just try to. Okay, is it wrong to stand and shower? No, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, what you have to try to avoid is when you're in the bathroom, when somebody goes to the toilet, it's makruh tahrimi to have your back or your face towards the qibla, right? So one thing you can do is rip your toilet out and put it to the corner. Or other way you can do is just turn a little bit so you know that you're both ways, you're not facing, or you go back towards the qibla. And when you're in the bathroom, okay, when you've obviously most cases, right? if not all the time, people don't have any clothes on, right? So again, this way, this will be a bit makruh if you're facing towards the Qibla. If you have your back, it's okay, but you're not allowed because obviously your aura, right? So somebody's asked the question, he says, is it wrong to stand and shower? Is your wudu accepted? It's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, we'll just, last point, we've got 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, we'll just get to the last point, shall we? I don't believe actually we've got it in. I didn't think I would. Right, it seemed a difficult task, but alhamdulillah. Right, when is ghusl not necessary? Again, this is important. Okay, madi and what do you call them in Arabic? Right, there's terms for it. One is basically is called pre-cum, when a person to arousal. Okay, the clear white stuff that comes out. Ghusl is not fard there, okay, but the wudu will break, okay. And the madi is sometimes for males, okay, when they urinate, sometimes something similar to sperm will come out, okay, which is through no arousal at all, okay. Again, that is, it's not fard upon you for ghusl. You would just have to clean that up and make wudu. It will break your wudu, but ghusl would not become fard. If a person, for example, wakes up and they think they've had a wet dream, but yet there's no wetness, nothing, okay, even for a female, okay, then ghusl is not necessary. Okay, I think that's that ends it. I think there's a few more things, but again, it's inshallah, maybe there's some families and so forth, so sometimes obviously we have to be careful as some of how the words we use, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, I think we've more or less covered it. Let me see if there's any questions there. Okay, that's a good question, actually. Very good question. Somebody asked, it says, if someone has a feeling that they've broken wind, right, but not sure. So you remember one thing now, there's a rule in Arabic, in the fiqh, okay, that the yaqeen cannot be, the certainty cannot be removed by a doubt. So what does that mean? That means that I know I made wudu. I know that I left the home, for example, I made wudu. Now I'm thinking, did I break my wudu? Did I break wind? Okay, now you've got all of these thoughts. Now, unless you're sure that you went to the toilet, you broke your wudu, or unless you're sure that you broke wind, your wudu stands. So you can read all your namaz with that same wudu, okay, and it becomes difficult upon the shaitan because he can't give you them waswasas anymore, right? So unless you're sure, your wudu stands. This is the beauty of our deen, this is the ease of our deen, right? So it says, or doesn't think he has. Okay, so he doesn't need to do wudu again. Okay, so if somebody's not sure, remember, unless somebody's certain that they broke wudu, then their wudu breaks. But unless if somebody's got a doubt, thinking, did I break my wudu? Did I not break my wudu? Okay, did I go to the toilet? Did I not go? Then basically the wudu stands. Okay, the wudu stands. Because certainty cannot be removed by doubt. And you have certainty that you made wudu. Now you're not certain whether you broke your wudu. Okay. Okay, is your prayer accepted if you do wudu in the wrong order? Of course. Okay, because according to us, according to the Hanafis, it's not fard to do it in a sequence. It's a sunnah. Again, obviously, if somebody becomes a habit, then the person could be sinful, right? But the prayer is valid because why? All of the limbs of fard limbs were washed, so basically the wudu stands, the prayer stands. Okay, does the wudu need to touch the skin or every hair? I mean, if you touch the skin, it's going to touch the hair anyway, right? So basically, the main thing is that the limbs that we said that the 4 fard, as long as they've been washed properly, okay, that's fine. So in other words, if you know that you wash them thoroughly, okay, again, look, just remember one thing: once you wash them thoroughly, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't let the shaitan, because all the shaitan appoints a special shaitan, and his duty is tell him, you missed a bit, you didn't do that. Wow, what about that? I want that person, and I used to see people and know people. It used to take half an hour making wudu. This is waswasa from the shaitan. If somebody's having that waswasa, okay, and people have come to me and asked me advice, and I've helped some people certain, and mashallah, life becomes so easy after that. They think subhanallah, it's like, but you have to take advice, okay, and because otherwise the deen is going to become so difficult for you that obviously it's going to become too much. Touching a dog, does it break wudu? Okay, no, it doesn't break wudu. Okay, it doesn't break wudu. But the thing is, the saliva of a dog, okay, is impure. So if the dog licks you, anything like that goes, and then obviously your body and so forth, or your clothes, whatever it is that's impure. Right? Okay, so somebody asked about mascara. Okay, so obviously it will prevent the water from getting there. So obviously if it's preventing the water, then that has to be removed. Right? It has to be removed. Yes, somebody asked, he says, the Quran, for example, can you move the Quran without wuzu? If you've got a piece of cloth, okay, not your sleeve, okay, a piece of cloth, or it's clean, right? Or a tissue, okay, you can hold it and you can move it from one place to another place, right? Somebody asked, can we make the dua in our hearts? As long as you don't utter anything. As long as you don't utter anything, it's fine. If it's in your mind, okay, then maybe. Right? But really, you should avoid it, because anywhere there's filth, you should take anything out of your mind regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, if somebody has drops of urine as a medical issue, okay, what does that person do? Right? Somebody's asked a question. This question here is, again, this is called ma'dhur. Ma'dhur means that this person's excused. So if somebody has continuous drops of urine and it doesn't stop, so basically the ruling there would be that if, for example, from one namaz time, so let's say, for example, Zohr started, right? Zohr started and you got drops of urine. Okay, now every time you're about to make wudu, okay, or every time you get up, every time you do, what happens? You see that more drops, right? So now it's not allowing you to make wudu. So okay, so now that person, what he would do, if his medical issue that the doctors have said, so then in that case, what that person would do is, if one whole namaz time passes, where it's not allowing that person to make wudu, because every time he gets up to make wudu, every time he looks, another urine drop has come out, right? So what this person would do, let's say Zohr starts at 1 o'clock, right? So from 1 o'clock he checks and he thinks, okay, let me try it, and the urine drop, and it keeps happening, right? So from Zohr, let's say Asr starts at 4 o'clock, right? So now what he does is till about 3:45, okay, he keeps checking to see, is it allowing him or no? And if that reason is there all the way through, this is like somebody's got a cut and somebody's bleeding, and the bleeding continuous, right? And it's not allowed. Every time he's made wudu, it starts bleeding again. Okay, this same rule applies to that. Or somebody's got a problem with wind. All of these applies. Okay, that keeps, all of these rules apply to the same hukm al-ma'dhur, that he waits one namaz time, he waits towards the end. Once there's about 15 minutes left and it's not letting him, then that person makes wudu. He reads the namaz, even if there's urine drops, or even if he's bleeding, it doesn't matter, because now he's considered ma'dhur. Now, once the next namaz time comes in, so let's say Asr comes in, now he doesn't have to wait to the end. As soon as Asr comes in, if he realizes that thing is still there, now he just makes wudu and he reads namaz. He could read namaz, he could read Quran, he could do everything with that wudu, and it won't affect him, unless obviously he goes to toilet or breaks wind, anything other than the normal excuse why he's been excused. His wuzu will break. The only time his wuzu will break, once the Asr time goes out and Maghrib time comes in, then his wuzu is gone. Maghrib time he checks again. If it's still there, again what he does is he makes wudu, and from Maghrib to Isha he can pray wherever he wants. Same thing Isha. Now the only time that will happen is when one whole namaz time passed and that excuse will no longer there. Now that person's gone back to normal. Now the person obviously makes wudu as normal. Okay, I think that question's come a few times. We asked that. Well, so okay, somebody says, whilst having a bath, if your back is facing the Qibla, is your wuzu accepted? Yes, fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, somebody asked, how many days can you do that? How many days can you do that in terms of I think this is going back to the question of if somebody's got urine drops, I believe. It doesn't matter how long. As long as the excuse is there, if somebody's got medical reason for life, that person can always do that. Right? Obviously, if you know that it's gonna, let's say for example, you got a cut, and it might continuously, but after a while it might stop. Once it stops, so basically that ma'dhur, that excuse is removed once that person's excuse has gone. Okay, I think the questions are finished. I think we've gone over time as well, inshallah. Barakallah feekum. May Allah bless you all, inshallah, for joining us. May Allah give you tawfiq, inshallah. May Allah accept it from all of us. Any mistake we made in teaching and learning and understanding, may Allah forgive us and open our hearts and make our matters easy for us, inshallah. May Allah bless us in the dunya and the akhirah. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.